Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live here on a beautiful Thursday night. We are almost there to Fabulous Friday. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your beautiful evening. iHeartRadio, YouTube, X, IG, TikTok, and Twitch. You can like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date. You don't want to miss a lot of these episodes. We have been on fire with interviews lately. I've been taking at least, a couple of days off with the interviews. It's a lot. It is a lot, but it's a lot of fun. We're going to be having at least a couple of guests that will be coming on here in the coming days. But I figured we'd catch up on a few things that we have not touched upon. Really excited about it. Some big news that's been coming out. Spring training right now underway. NBA playoff actions getting geared up. And only a few days away from the NHL trade deadline. So one of the news that broke out for the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm going to be talking about this here for about a few minutes. So the Minnesota Vikings made the move, and this was predictable. So the Vikings have announced that they are releasing running back Alexander Mattison. So the only running backs they have is Ty Chandler and Cam Akers. Doesn't that feel like that this was kind of the feeling they were going through the second Dalvin Cook was gone? They didn't have a run game anymore. And listen, Alexander Mattison is a really good secondary back, but he is not a starter. Okay, you could tell by the amount of times he scored. He didn't. He scored no touchdowns last season. He had injuries, and he was not the best. So Minnesota has a lot to think of from here. And so, this is the thing. A couple days ago, I had a good friend of mine rap a vocal Vike that came on, and he even says it. The offense needs to be better. Minnesota cannot afford to be a fourth-place team. They've got too much talent on there, and a lot of this is circling around. What do they do about Justin Jefferson? Are they going to trade, or are they going to try to get a quarterback in hopes that he will stay and they'll retain his contract? All those questions are valuable points. Okay, they're very valid. But the truth is, for Minnesota, they got a lot to think about. Danielle Hunter, he's a big-time pass rusher. Who knows if he's going to stick around? They're going to probably let him walk. And then at the same time, Harrison Smith's getting up there. So Minnesota is pivoting to where they really got to start to think about offense. And and the only thing that the Vikings could really do is they got to get themselves a better quarterback. But there are a bunch of them that are there. Okay. So, in my opinion, with it, I think Minnesota, they go and draft themselves a capable quarterback. They do. And I honestly do think they should go and get either Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, or Michael Penix if those three quarterbacks are available. And so Minnesota, they really have to think about this. Kevin O'Connell is a very smart offensive coach. He's not somebody that's going to allow this offense to fail. Justin Jefferson is an absolute huge home run as an offensive weapon. Same with Jordan Addison. You know how many times that he scored this year? Yeah, he's an offensive machine. And you have TJ Hawkinson. You have an offense outside of quarterback and outside of the running game. So I think you got to make this right. And I think if Minnesota, if you had to ask me what I would do if I'm Minnesota's general managing, I'd be getting depth at offensive line. I'd be going and seeing who's available in the running back market that I can get for an affordable price. And then at the same time, I would go and draft my next quarterback. That's what I would do. Even if it meant you go and get a bridge quarterback. Because up to this point, to be honest, Zach Wilson's available. And Zach Wilson feels like a bridge quarterback to me. He'll be a backup, but I think if you really had to draft a quarterback, either Bo Nix or Penix or even J.J. McCarthy, you go and have a bridge quarterback for at least a couple weeks and then see what they do. It's now taken a lot of quarterbacks at least 5 weeks than the regular 8. So, and I think if you put J.J. McCarthy a part of this offense, he will work well with Kevin O'Connell. He'll shape up his offensive schematics. He'll ultimately shape up a lot of his skill set and how poised he is in the pocket. But J.J. McCarthy's a gamer. At the same time, Bo Nix is a gamer. He's a guy that's capable that he can throw the ball deep downfield, but he's also somebody that can run out the pocket. He's had better years in Oregon. Okay, and since him and Dan Lanning got together in college, he's been a better quarterback. And Dan Lanning is responsible for that. So either one of them. And the thing about Michael Penix, a left-handed quarterback, but who's very poised in the pocket, throws a beautiful deep ball, and I think you can honestly live with it. I think it'd be perfect. But to kind of come to this point, Minnesota has a lot that they have to consider with offense. They do. You know it, and I know it. But Minnesota, all that they could do is possibly get younger at defense and really get some stars on offense. Offensive line is huge. Remember, they traded away Ezra Cleveland. Okay, they have a bunch of offensive line help that they need. And they also need a run game. You could go into the market and go and get a running back and maybe draft one later on in the rounds. There's a lot of guys that are available up on there. You could get your secondary down running back out of the draft, or maybe even if you get somebody that's primary, maybe that's the deal. But as far as for quarterback, I wouldn't be bringing back Kirk Cousins because of the way that things have panned out in primetime games. I need somebody that's going to be bigger than that. And at the same time, you were a first-round exit against the Giants at one point. That's embarrassing. So I'd be moving on. I'd be cutting my losses, and I would be honestly drafting in my next quarterback. But this was not a coincidental move. Minnesota has a lot of pieces they got to fill. And we've had the draft combine so far. It's been great watching a lot of these kids. I don't really pay attention to it as much because I know that a lot of these players' skill sets is special. But at the same time, I look at this and I know from what I see. So my thing with Minnesota, you got to get a quarterback, go and get a running back in the market and fix up the offensive line as well. And I think you would be in a much better situation because Green Bay is better. Detroit is better. If Chicago does the right thing, they'll be better. You don't want to be the fourth place team in the NFC North. You just cannot allow it to happen. But that's my plan with Minnesota, and that's what I would do. All right, so I thought this was interesting. So I found this thanks to a lot of our trustworthy sources on medias, but I thought that this was interesting to kind of pay attention to and to really kind of look at. But the 2021 draft, okay, that featured Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. It featured a lot of different quarterbacks at that time. So, so to me personally, when I look at a lot of these drafting quarterbacks, here is what I see from a lot of them. So the 5 quarterbacks that were big names in 2021: Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. So all 5 of those quarterbacks, you want to know what they all have in common? Only except for one, only 4 have losing records. Trevor Lawrence, 20-30. Zach Wilson, he's in the same boat too. And I think personally, you look at the results from a lot of these quarterbacks, and this is just bad. This is bad. Because I just look at this and I just think this was just not a good look for either one of them. Now, to each's point, Trevor Lawrence, the reason being 20-30 is because he didn't have the right head coach in his first year. Okay. And so here it is. So Trevor Lawrence being 20-30 as a starter, Mac Jones, 17 wins, 41 touchdown passes, and 28 interceptions, and his completion percentage is 66. Trey Lance had 2 wins, 2 losses. He's the only one that is neutral and yet has been hurt the most. 54% completion percentage, 5 touchdown passes, 3 picks, a quarterback rating of 84.5. Mac Jones was 87.9. Justin Fields, 5 wins, 31 touchdown passes, 26 picks, 80.9 in his passer rating, and completing 60% of his throws. And Zach Wilson, 8 wins, 19 touchdown passes, 22 picks, and a 71.1 quarterback rating. So, again, you look at the numbers and you look at this, because I just think with all 5 of those quarterbacks, the only one that I could honestly defend is Trevor Lawrence, because he is a great quarterback. And he is somebody, I don't think that he is generally a generational talent, which is what a lot of people are starting to realize. However, when I look at this with these quarterbacks, I mean, Zach Wilson, you clearly know he's a bridge, he's a backup. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for him. And also, Trey Lance, he was hurt way too many times. He's also been somebody that's wildly erratic. So that can't possibly work. So I think to make matters worse, it just didn't work for Trey Lance. It didn't even work for San Francisco. So I just think ultimately with these quarterbacks, because New England, as of right now, they are not going to be keeping Mac Jones. They're basically done with him. They're not going to keep Mac Jones. So Trevor Lawrence is the only one that's going to have his job retained, because Trevor Lawrence is that talented. Really, really good quarterback. Hopefully, Doug Peterson rebounds himself, but they need a better offensive, they need a better offensive coordinator. They also need to have at least their offensive line healthy, but I do think he has really good weapons around him. Christian Kirk is real good. Now, I think they may end up losing Calvin Ridley, but even I thought he was a good wide receiver. But at the end of all of this, it just never translated to where this team really got the best of themselves. It's hard. It's very hard. But I think Mac Jones, he needs to be in a better spot, at a better place. Now, most people might end up saying he is not that talented enough to still be a starting quarterback. Maybe that is true. But I would beg to differ and think, well, if most of this was because of Belichick, then I would say, okay, you put him into a different quarterback system, maybe he will play better. Maybe he will have a better opportunity to really build upon himself. But you and I both know this just was not going to be bound to work. It wasn't. And so I do think that, for these quarterbacks in 2021, this was the worst one. This was the worst year for quarterbacks. It just did not work. And Mac Jones, to be honest, he had a lot of frustrations in New England. Everybody did when it came to Bill Belichick, because Belichick was unable to pivot. And he has such a bad struggle pivoting. But I think that if you put him in a different spot, maybe he will progress. I don't know. But, Mac Jones, he's just got to have a change of scenery out of New England. It didn't work for him. But we could always say that if, in fact, let's say he does get better. Let's say he does make it. And if that's the case, then I could be okay with it. But at the same time, you just got to be able to really get a better feel, for quarterback. But I do think that Trevor Lawrence, his job is safe, but everybody else's, including Justin Fields, they'll definitely be on the move at some point. And we'll see that come next month. Good stuff. But I can tell you, Trevor Lawrence is the only player, the only quarterback I would trust, because in the end, I'm hoping Doug Peterson gets this right. Because if he doesn't, that's not gonna be a good look for Jacksonville. And then you're gonna have Trevor Lawrence get pissed off. He's gonna want better, as he should. So, but I do think it's interesting to really kind of recap the 2021 draft class, because this draft class just was not that strong at quarterback. It was more strong for wide receivers. It was more strong for edge rushers. And I also do think it was really strong for offensive linemen. That's just the way it was. So I think, honestly, you need to go and get a new quarterback. Chicago's got the number 1 pick this year. The Falcons now are part of the tops. So, and New England is up there. So New England, you could kind of tell they need a quarterback. They're going to want a new quarterback. And as far as for the Jets, your hope is that they get a better offensive line, and hoping Aaron Rodgers does everything, as he continuously speaks, he says that he can. So, but I do think Chicago, whether if they do keep Justin Fields or even if they move on and they go and take Caleb Williams, could be very, very interesting. Yeah, Vegas could be an option. But I think personally, again, I think it would be interesting that if Mac Jones left New England, if you met him, if you moved him, maybe he might thrive. But who knows? That door I'm leaving open. But it will be really, really interesting to see what this offseason is going to look like. All right. So you've been hearing me talk about it for so long. And so I have the most trustworthy ticketing app. And I'm going to be, by the way, I'm going to be going to the Avalanche game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Well, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be watching Connor Bedard, and I'm going to be watching Nathan McKinnon and so many different stars there at Bowl Arena starting Monday. So I will be there. You don't want to end up missing me up out there. For those of you who watch the show, I'll be there. But I have the most trustworthy ticketing app that's big in this business, and that is SeatGeek.com. SeatGeek has you covered for you to find your best seat at your next event at an affordable price. Whether it is catching your next big game, whether it is going to your favorite concert to seeing your favorite artist, whether it's going to a comedy show, art club, whatever it may be, SeatGeek will ensure you don't lose out on your seat at any of your next events. SeatGeek.com is the website to choose for the most trustworthy ticketing app on the market. Go online, download it on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And when you do, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your first purchase of your first ticket. As a way of saying thanks for using the most trustworthy ticketing app online, SeatGeek.com, mobile device, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Don't lose your seat with SeatGeek. $20 off. That's using Snake Sports as the promo code.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sportsway Network.
Key Williams at Dante Criswell star in 7200 Seconds podcast Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sportswave Network.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Don't lose your seat today with SeatGeek, but also the show is sponsored by BetUS, best sports betting online utility that you can use for sports book expertise and also for your favorite casino games. That's BetUS.com, where the game begins. Sign up now when you put $50 or more in your deposit. You get 200% bonus with 30 risk-free bets. That's all with BetUS.com. So, March Madness is right there around the corner. I'm excited about it. And so the big news of it is, and a lot of people don't quite know what they may actually end up doing about this. But honestly, I'm going to be all out excited about it. So Iowa's star, Caitlin Clark, has announced that she will be entering the 2024 draft and will not stay another year in Iowa. And rightfully so. Caitlin Clark is everything you would want her to be. Absolutely offensive, and is also somebody that I think is a generational game changer. Caitlin Clark is ridiculous. If you looked at exactly with the numbers that she's put up this year, it's absolutely insanity. So this year, this year going into March Madness, she's averaged 32.2 points a game, 7.4 rebounds, 8.7 assists, with a field goal percentage of at least 46.9, which is fine. But Caitlin Clark is everything you want her to be. She's an absolute game changer, and she's somebody who ends up managing it very well. This is a monstrous year that Caitlin Clark has put together. And she is, right now, from what it sounds like, she only has 18 points away from the overall NCAA scoring record. And it would have given her another year had it not been for COVID. And I know for a lot of these star college athletes. However, Caitlin Clark, throughout the entirety of her career in Iowa, she's averaged 28.3 points a game from all 4 years. Okay. And her assists are about 8 and rebounds are 7. And she's also somebody that knows how to block. So, and she's also one that is an offensive disruptor, knows how to steal the ball away. She'll get in your face. And Caitlin Clark, I think honestly, she's a one of a kind. It's much like we've seen a lot of different players in the WNBA. I mean, we watched Breanna Stewart be a game changer. We watched Asia Wilson be a game changer. And now she's got arguably, I think, one of the other two best players in that roster with Chelsea Gray and Kelsey Plum. But you also look at that New York Liberty roster, and it's really good. So, and the team that's got the number 1 pick, you wouldn't believe it, which is just about close to Iowa, is the Indiana Fever. So the Fever have the number 1 overall pick, and I would guarantee you they will be the ones to land Caitlin Clark. Why not? She's the number 1 overall prospect. She is a generational type player that is going to give you the points. She's going to give you the assists. And she's also somebody that is going to give you all the minutes and the possession on your side. Now, Indiana, they may not look like a strong team as of this moment. I've watched Indiana. They're not that strong. However, you can look into the future. And you have Caitlin Clark there. My hope is maybe in free agency they can go and get some players. But Caitlin Clark is everything you would want in a WNBA player, but more importantly, what you would want in a star athlete as a whole. Because it's just like I talked about yesterday, is that we don't have enough big-time domestic stars. A lot of them are all ran internationally. So I think Caitlin Clark in the WNBA serves a big purpose, just like Breanna Stewart did, and Asia Wilson, multiple players. Candace Parker was somebody that was really, really good at one point with the Sparks. Made her way to Chicago and won the title with the Sky. Ends up winning another title with the Aces. You will find really good, really clutch players far and wide. And I think it's a great thing. But I think Caitlin Clark is everything you want her to be. And from somebody in in a corn-fed state in Iowa, in Des Moines, it's a beautiful spot. But she'll give you the grit. She will give you the efforts. And I think we're honestly going to witness, by the time she hits the floor in the WNBA and by tip-off, I'm going to be glued to that television, and I'm going to be watching greatness before my very eyes. And the WNBA really has produced a lot of really good women college basketball players. They really have. And it's safe to say, honestly, we should put respect on it. I think it's great. So I'm really excited about Caitlin Clark. I do think she is an absolute game changer. And I think she will be another one of those big-time pillars that you would want not only in the WNBA, but also in all of major sports. So let's get into the news.
This is the Hot Press.
So lots of news that have been spiraling around. As we know, the Minnesota Vikings have announced that they are cutting running back Alexander Mattison. After last season, he did not end up scoring a touchdown. Mattison struggled massively as a starter running back and did not translate with the Minnesota Vikings. It's as I've said before, Minnesota really needs to start shaping up for their offense. They got to shape up with their offensive line. They got to go and draft the next quarterback, and they really got to get themselves working on that run game. Because, again, I could go and get, on this running back market, I could very much go and get an affordable running back that will help, or at least give me everyday down rushes, and I can go and draft a running back later on in the round. I could go and get the next big thing. So I think this is good. I think this worked out perfectly. So with Minnesota, because they have a lot to think about with Danielle Hunter and a couple of other really good players, Minnesota is going to be the team that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for. But I did not think Alexander Mattison really was the answer as basically their starter, and you clearly saw that. So some news in the NBA as Joel Embiid ended up announcing not too long ago that he does plan to return this season regardless of the 76ers record. So the first time he spoke to the media just today, it was the first time he did since he suffered the knee injury a month ago, and says he hopes that he will be able to return sometime before the regular season is over. He went on to say that that's the plan. Obviously, everything has to go right. As far as getting healthy and being as close as I am supposed to be, but yeah, that's the plan. So the 29-year-old having a historic season, was having absolutely like an MVP caliber season until, that time when Jonathan Kuminga ended up inadvertently fell on his left leg, and then that's where, he suffered the injury. So, and that was the loss to the Warriors. Now, the Sixers, as you know, they clearly miss Joel Embiid, and they know health is a big problem. The Sixers moving forward, because if they do not have their guys healthy, it is very hard. It's very hard to even translate that to where, the Sixers will still be that tough team moving forward. They're sixth right now in the Eastern Conference, but I do think that if you have Embiid back, you'll get your defense back. Hopefully, their offense starts to click, because remember, they did get Buddy Hield, so they do have at least a couple players that are there, but I think they're missing that one big player, which is Joel Embiid. I think he's part of that reason that it's the Sixers culture. from defense to offense and to, minutes that he's on the floor. I mean, he's an absolute he's fierce. So you miss out on that. It's not good. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is interesting. So the Pittsburgh Steelers GM announces saying that he has full faith in Kenny Pickett after his struggles last season. So the Pittsburgh Steelers general manager, Omar Khan, still expresses full confidence in his first-round pick from 2022, basically going on to saying, I have full faith in Kenny. He's shown us some good things, and obviously there were some issues with the offense. I'm excited about the impact that Arthur Smith's going to have on him. Arthur's very optimistic about Kenny, and they communicated. And like I said, we will have some strong competition there, and we'll see where it goes. Feel really good about him. So this is interesting because Kenny Pickett last season, he did not have the best numbers. He kind of looked more average than he did of actually looking like a franchise quarterback. So that is one of the things that looking forward for the Steelers. I mean, first of all, you've got George Pickens, you've got Deontay Johnson, you've got Najee Harris. If you could fix that offensive line, now the speculation that's around it, and I'll talk about this here in a little bit, but the speculation is that Russell Wilson's name has been thrown out there, and I do think that this could be a very interesting fit. You put Russell Wilson in an offense like this, he'll produce. So I think, in the end, I don't have any hate for Kenny Pickett, but I do think when you look at it, if you look at him next to a lot of quarterbacks, you're not going to try to settle for mediocre, not in the division you play in. With Cleveland, who's got a strong defense, Cincinnati and Baltimore, who both have their quarterbacks, but Baltimore, they have a very ferocious defense. And who knows what it'll look like now without Mike McDonald. But at the same time, you got a strong division in the North. So I wouldn't settle for mediocre, but at the same time, I probably would not end up getting rid of, Kenny Pickett out of this organization as a whole. I would still, like I said, I think competitions is probably the right thing that you should do. But it seems to me, Russell Wilson looks like he could be a very good option for the Steelers. If that's the case for the Denver Broncos, but I'll touch upon this here in a little bit more here right after. But that is your hot press.
This is the hot press.
So I think it is interesting, though. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are now becoming the rising candidates to possibly land Russell Wilson as their next quarterback. This is an interesting, and I honestly do think this is the right fit for Russ. Now, he's coming off of a year with Sean Payton. And if potentially this happens, he'll have Mike Tomlin. And they just hired their new offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. Now, Arthur Smith, as an offensive coordinator, totally different guy. But I do think Pittsburgh, they need to get themselves in the right direction. Offensive line needs to get better. But what does Pittsburgh have that will help them to, at the very least, make them a very viable team again? They've got weapons. Because I love Pat Freiermuth, their tight end, and George Pickens, and they've also got Deontay Johnson when he's healthy. But they may go and get another receiver, whether in free agency or in the draft. The Rooney family have been really good at finding hidden gems in the draft. Then you've got a dual running back threat with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. So there's nothing wrong with Pittsburgh. Nothing that I could consider as being a bad destination. But they are big on defense. And we know that they're going to have to end up making some sacrifices. But in the end, offensive line is their biggest key thing. But look at what happened with their quarterbacks last season. Mitch Trubisky, come on. Not good enough. Mason Rudolph. Why do people keep thinking that Rudolph is still going to end up being the Steelers quarterback? No, he's not. Rudolph cannot end up handling anything on his own. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the time when Baltimore had to basically trust Tyler Huntley. Okay? And I do think he's a good quarterback, but he's not even close to a star quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Now, Kenny Pickett, I think it's safe to say you should keep him. Because Kenny Pickett, he will do a lot of really good things for Pittsburgh. But I think it should be right. I think you should have quarterback competitions on this roster. And especially for a lot of these big-time quarterbacks. You bring Russell Wilson into Pittsburgh. The best thing you're going to get for Russ, because number one, he's not washed. He's thrown 24 touchdowns and 8 picks, and his completion percentage is a lot better. You got Russell in Seattle, which is what Sean Payton has done. And now moving into Mike Tomlin, who's a players type coach. He's a guy's guy. I think you could definitely get the best of Russ in Pittsburgh. And you're in a division with Lamar, with Joe Burrow, and who knows? Will Deshaun Watson be a better quarterback next season for the Browns? I don't know. But I can't settle for mediocre. That's not in the cards for me. I've got to get the next big thing. Because even if you don't get one, then honestly, you should make a decision to maybe getting a quarterback this year if that's what you choose to do. But if they make that move, and let's say they're like, if we go and get Russ, we can get a quarterback next season and maybe build him up and then get our franchise quarterback there in the end, which is very possible. But you really think that Pittsburgh is just going to settle with Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett? I would not be selling myself mediocre if I'm Pittsburgh, because that's not what's been in their DNA. Since Terry Bradshaw and Big Ben, there's been not a whole lot of quarterbacks. I like Cordell Stewart. I thought he was really, really good and solid, but he wasn't the guy. I thought Neil O'Donnell was a good quarterback, but even he wasn't the guy. And neither was Tommy Maddox. It's okay to going and getting a quarterback, whether it be Russ. I don't see them going and getting Zach Wilson. I don't see them maybe potentially going and getting Kirk Cousins, because you're trying to win this division. You got Baltimore walking all over you. You got Cincinnati and Joe Burrow walking all over you. You have a lot of these quarterbacks in the North that are going to play well. Hell, you had Joe Flacco in Cleveland and make the playoffs, and you didn't do squat. It just didn't do anything. So, and again, I think Pittsburgh is a very well-run franchise, but this is horrible that you've looked mediocre. Offensive line sucks. And at the same time, you've got hell of amount of weapons that are all around you that are really good. So why not go and get Russ? I think Russell, with the way you have this offense set, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's a really good fit. I like this. So I think Pittsburgh could be the place. Atlanta has been another name that has been thrown out there for Russ, but it's not going to be Seattle. I don't see him working with the Raiders. So I think your only two viable options, or maybe a third, could be Minnesota, it could be Pittsburgh, and it also could be Atlanta. Those are my three places. Notice how that there's only 2 NFC teams and 1 AFC team, because a lot of quarterbacks have moved to the AFC. But look at how many of them have been successful. Aaron Rodgers suffered an injury last season. Russell, you got the best out of him after just a atrocious year one in Denver. You got the best version of him, but in the end, it just doesn't work with Sean Payton's system. So I think Russell to Pittsburgh sounds like a better fit. Atlanta sounds like a better fit as well because you've got Kyle Pitts and you've got a dual running back threat with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. And you've got Drake London. You could go get another receiver. And Minnesota, they've got weapons. You've got 3 very capable and very viable offenses that are willing to have a guy like Russ. Do not tell me Russell does not have a market. I think he does. Washington, I thought this could have been at least the place for Russ, which it still could be in play, but it sounds like to me they're waiting to see what happens with Chicago, and they may end up drafting Caleb Williams if that's the case. They're waiting to see what's going to happen. But I think it's clear. I mean, I think those are arguably the destinations, and my wild card would be Washington. So, but Russell, this narrative that Russell's washed is done. It's not. He's not. I think he works. He's worked better. You got at least a lot of Russell in Seattle. So I think this could work for Pittsburgh. And next to Mike Tomlin, you're going to have a viable offense. You're going to have Arthur Smith that's there. It's going to be interesting. But it's like I said, there are multiple reasons that you could honestly love Russ in those 3 areas. So I think Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and I think potentially Minnesota, if that is the case, but my wild card would be Washington. Russell has a market. So, but I think I'd be leaning more Pittsburgh than anything else because you've got good weapons that are there. You've got a dual threat run game, and all you need is to fix that offensive line. The defense will figure itself out. It always has. That has been in their DNA. But the last thing you want to sell me on is you want to sell me on mediocre. I don't want to be. Not in a division where I've got Cleveland's strong defense with Myles Garrett. Not while I've got Joe Burrow there in Cincinnati. And not while I've got Lamar and the Baltimore Ravens there. Okay? I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. So, I think it would work. Mike Tomlin is exactly that guy that knows how to talk to his players, and I think it works. So, yeah. I think it'll be interesting. But we're going to take a break here. We're going to come back and we're going to give at least our thoughts with as far as the NFL draft and what we may end up looking out for. But rest assured, I will have my top 10s. I will eventually have my NFL draft, like my mock drafts, because I do think we kind of have an idea of a lot of these players and where they're going to end up going. But we're going to be back here after this one.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Nate Goyard.
Bitch, I'm a ball, bitch, I'm a ball. Don't get no fault, don't get no ball. What's in my cup? What's in my cup? Full of that punch, nigga, that punch. Bitch, I'm a ball, ballin' like Kobe. Ho, keep it moving, cause you do not know me. Bitch, I'm a ball, ballin' like Kobe. Ho, keep it moving, cause you do not know me. Bitch, I'm a ball, can't talk in Milwaukee. Tell my dog sick of me, ain't do no barking. Pass me some greens, you know I'ma spark it. Mama got ass, told her to arch it. Pull up at the spot, hop out and don't park it. Bino say, always keep one in the cartridge. With Joey up pepper, so we going toxic. Came from the swamp to visit the tropics. Check out the scenery. Took little mama to the backwoods right by the lake. And I had some weed on me. Had to retire my cup, but it still doubled up. So pour out some lean for me. We took an edible, feeling incredible. Fed away into the sheets. Hustle and flow as you need. Easy to
We'll tell you one thing, guys, back here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. I am really been so proud and have been so happy of our fellow network that we started, and all of the great people working behind the scenes on the network, and a lot of them who have showcased a lot of their shows. I shout out to every single one of them. And we are growing strong. We've already added in 3 more people here on the network. I'm just so proud. But this network this year, it's been going strong, and we are still right now looking for more great, more amazing minds and a lot of great contents that are out there willing and wanting to join something special, and that's here on Sports Wave Network. So again, I'd get involved. It's fun stuff. Absolutely love it. So I wanted to kind of give my final thoughts upon this. So I'm going to probably break this down here this way. Now, I think it's interesting for a few reasons. And I think part of it is the NFL draft. There's going to be a lot that I'm going to end up breaking down from here. But however, I will in fact have a top 10 as some of my favorite 10 players to look at in the draft. It is not anything personal as far as the top 10 draft picks that are up there, but these are my favorite players that I would have in the top 10s. So, but I am going to basically break this down in a little bit since we have about a few minutes before closing out. But I wanted to basically break it down this way. So, few things to really kind of look out for the NFL draft. Well, this year, unlike any year that we've had in a lot of different drafts, one, it is a quarterback-heavy draft. So heavy because we've got 5 potential stars, 3 of them that are in the middle of the pack. That's 8. And 3 more who could be low end, but yet very, very clutch and very solid players. Names like Sam Hartman, Joe Milton. I would also say, like Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels. This quarterback class is massive. It's bigger than anything we've seen. And we've also got sprinkle in some Spencer Radlers. So it's a big quarterback-heavy draft. I'm loving every bit of this because I do think this is so much fun. I think this is honestly going to be the draft because, again, 2020, we had gotten 5 quarterbacks. One that was a late rounder, which was Jalen Hurts. They were first-round quarterbacks. I am curious to see exactly where everybody's going to go. Caleb Williams is he is a first rounder. Drake May is a first rounder. Jaden Daniels is a first rounder. And honestly, we've been hearing a lot of emergence of J.J. McCarthy's name being out there as a first rounder. Bo Nix being a first rounder. And they're saying now Michael Penix might be a second rounder because there's a lot of skepticism around in the league as far as his build and as far as his skill set. but you also got to mix in some Sam Harts, some Spencer Radlers, and some Joe Miltons and more. So this is a quarterback-heavy draft that I'm really excited about. What's the next thing that's going to be exciting about? What teams need a left tackle? There's a lot of them. Olu Fashanu, really, really good offensive lineman out of Penn State, who I think is honestly going to be, he's a big name out there, and so is Joe Alt. But my hope with Joe Alt from Notre Dame, I mean, he produced himself as a very good, he was a top-rated offensive lineman, but my only hope of it is that they do have an established offensive line that all they're needing is a left tackle. Go and take, for instance, the New York Jets. I could see potentially the Jets go and get a tackle because Mekhi Becton was just not the guy. He was not the guy. And they need help because Aaron Rodgers, the last thing you need him to do is go down on a season-ending injury again. This is not what you would want. So if you're the Jets, I would either get Fashanu if he's available, or I would go and get Joe Alt. So these guys, the tackle position is very, very massive this year. Offensive line, this is the perfect year to do so. I think we're starting to notice the trend is that there are, I'd say it's usually every other year or maybe even within 2-3 years, we'll get an offensive-centric draft. But then the next year, we're going to get defensive pieces with edge rushers, with defensive tackles, and so much more. So that's the second piece. So there's 5 things to note for. So one was it's quarterback heavy. The other is offensive tackles. Wait till you see the third. So the third one I have is wide receivers. Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, Roman Wilson. I would also say Keon Coleman from Florida State. There are so many different wide receivers. It's endless. Everybody nowadays wants to play wide receiver. They don't want to play corner. It's so thin at corner that it is so hard to find a superstar cornerback in this league now. And again, outside of Christian Gonzalez and Sauce Gardner, who are going to be really, really good corners for the next few years, there isn't anybody, at least not even in the draft, that I would consider would be very, very big-time shutdown guys, maybe outside of Kool-Aid McKinstry and maybe a couple others along the way. Or, Terrion Arnold. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of solid corners, but there's a lot of solid wide receivers. And I think for some of those that are going to need to get boosted into their wide receiving core, I mean, Buffalo could use a receiver. The Chargers could use another receiver without Mike Williams. But there are a lot of teams that could use wide receivers. Hell, Kansas City could use wide receivers if they don't end up getting some in free agency. So I think with a lot of these wide receivers right now, that is another one of their biggest components in this draft that'll be interesting to watch. Number 4, best players out of the big programs. Because you look at a lot of these big-time players. I mean, I look at Terrion Arnold. I look at, in my case, I think for defense, if Kool-Aid McKinstry fits, he was a real good fit in Alabama. Another one of them that's a big-time prospect. But I'm also seeing at least a couple of centers who have been really, really good. But here are the college programs that really knocked it out of the park. Georgia, Alabama, Michigan. I do think in some ways we've sprinkled on at least a couple of other programs here and there, like Notre Dame, who's got Joe Alt. We got Penn State when their head coach, James Franklin, he's produced really, really well with some players. Penn State's been starting to look a lot better. They're getting better. So I think you're going to see that. A lot of these big-time programs, they've got superstars in a lot of different areas. And so that's my number 4 thing. So keep an eye on at least a lot of these big-time programs and their players. Because LSU with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors, first-round talents, they produced some really good ones. And finally, for number 5, we look for the hidden gem. So as I've said, Spencer Rattler could be a hidden gem. I would honestly, I just seen this one kid from Tennessee. Right, he's quick. That's a good gem. I'd keep an eye out on him. Look, I kind of feel a little of the same way like I did when Jonathan Taylor first came into the league. I thought Jonathan Taylor was a great pick out of Wisconsin. And sure enough, he translated. So there's going to be many hidden gems that are in this draft. And I honestly think there's no other draft class that I would be more excited for than in 2024. I think it's safe to say this is what you want. This is what you look for. But I do think it is a very interesting draft, but it's stacked. It's filled with a lot of talents, mostly offense, but you could sprinkle in some defensive guys. I mean, Jared Verse from Florida State, who knows if he's honestly going to be the guy as an edge rusher. But I also do say this. The Chargers, they really should be considering getting Brock Bowers, one of their best tight ends, because he is a guy that, you've done a lot of scouting work up on him. He's strong. He's quick. He's also somebody that's got really good hands. He's a pass-catching tight end and somebody that gives you blocks. So, again, these are going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those drafts. A lot of these big-time stars that you're seeing out of college really come into the NFL, and this is honestly, it's going to be jam-packed and it's going to be wild. But, again, I think these are some good things to know. But I will have my top 10 ready to roll, and my top 10 will consist of my personal top 10 draftees to keep an eye on in the NFL draft. Because these are guys that, and these are all positions, by the way. It does not matter as far as from what their ranking is. These are guys that if I watch them, I'm saying that kid is going to translate into an NFL talent. Mark my words. So that's what a lot of these things are going to be. So, and I've got 10 of them. I think it's fair to have 10. So, again, I think this is going to be one of those NFL drafts I cannot wait for. So, I've kept my close eye on the scouting combine. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great. We've already got, our network already on top of it with the watch party. Don't miss out on that. But this NFL draft, man, I'm telling you, it's going to be interesting. Maybe I might actually have it tomorrow. Who knows? But again, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I cannot wait for what is going to come for these next couple of days. But all right, that's going to do it here for me here on the show. Appreciate all of you guys for stopping on by here on a beautiful Thursday night. We've got tomorrow, Friday, to really wrap up the week. I can't wait for Friday. I will be at the Avalanche game on Monday night in Ball Arena against the Chicago Blackhawks. You don't want to end up missing out. Really excited about that. So, appreciate all of you guys for jumping on here onto the show. Like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future and past shows. We're going to be having some interviews coming along the way. Got a really good friend of mine that may be stopping by, waiting on that. And then, of course, some analysts as well, analyzing more on the NHL because trade deadline, yeah, baby, you better believe it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So you don't want to miss it here on the next edition of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Have a great night, and we'll see you guys soon.